Bloomington Remember When is made possible in part by IU Credit Union Investment Services, offering a full range of financial planning, retirement planning, and insurance services. Complimentary consultation available by calling 812-855-4803. Siam House, offering Thai fine dining and takeout, including stir-fries, curry dishes, and banana fritters as featured in Bon Appetit. Lunch buffet 11 to 3 weekdays, corner of 4th and Dunn. The Monroe County History Center, bringing history to life with museum exhibits, a genealogy library and museum store, and history-themed events throughout the year. The History Center, where the past and the present meet. Online at monroehistory.org. Allen Funeral Home and Crematory of Bloomington, offering a complete line of services including pre-arrangement, cremation, and green burials. Locally owned and serving South Central Indiana for over 90 years. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Unless we remember, we cannot understand. So wrote the British novelist E.M. Forster many years ago. And the notion is as true today as it was then, especially when we seek to understand the meaning, importance, and complexity of a place. Like many towns, Bloomington, Indiana has a rich, storied past, but its real story, as is true of most places, resides not in history books, but in the memories of people who've lived and still live there. Those memories, some of great events chronicled and retold through the years, but mostly of smaller, personal moments living on only in the minds of those who experience them firsthand, constitute the true fabric of not only a physical place, but of a community. A community that's grown and changed and evolved over the decades in ways both expected and astonishing. To truly understand this place, we must explore it through the memories it's inspired.
My recollections of downtown are the fact that the soapbox derby was run down North Walnut, that activities were down there, that the parades were down there, the celebration after World War II was down there, and that's where the community came to celebrate events. It had the movie theaters downtown, the Indiana, the Princess, the Harris Grand, the Roxy. It had 3 or 4 hardware stores, it had drug stores. The dentists and doctors were down in the center of the community. That's where everything was.
I remember at the Indiana where there was a pageant, and I remember being dressed up in a little bow tie and a shirt and being put on a stage. I definitely remember what
I bet you were cute.
I remember what Steve alluded to about the soapbox derby. That was a big event. It would start at the top of the hill and come down under the railroad trestle.
The center of downtown Bloomington was, and remains, the Courthouse Square, around which many of Bloomington's former leading businesses were located. Like the rest of the downtown area, the square has changed over the decades.
The downtown was traditionally where the industry was. Of course, you had the Showers factory, which in its heyday was the world's largest factory, and the Showers is now office buildings. Then you had RCA. It, of course, employed, I think, 7,000, which is now where Cook Pharmaca is. You had on North College where Sarkis Tarzan had their manufacturing facility, which is now, a large apartment complex. People I knew from Lawrence County and Bloomington, when they graduated from high school, would go to Sarkis Tarzan and RCA. RCA, had 7,000 employees. You also had Showers at that point in time. Showers was still an active furniture company, so there were a lot of jobs for people that came right out of high school. And it wasn't until we went through that next transition that we began to lose those jobs, but they were replaced primarily with the West Side industries.
Every small city downtown has a main drag, and Bloomington is no exception. Kirkwood Avenue, named for famed Indiana University mathematician and astronomer Daniel Kirkwood, began as a tree-lined residential street, but has since undergone significant changes.
As you leave the square and you start at the First Christian Church and work your way east, it was absolutely beautiful. Beautiful homes. I had 2 or 3 people I went to school with who lived there on East Kirkwood.
I love the old houses and the trees, the huge trees that were around them.
When we lived there, actually there were street plots and huge maple trees all the way up to the square, and the trees all met overhead, and so it was a beautiful entrance, very sort of bucolic and lovely.
For the most part, both sides of the street were residential homes, and those, of course, started coming down, most of them right after World War II. You know, things have changed so drastically on that street, and there were some beautiful old Victorians. A lot of them came down for parking lots. There was a whole era of progress, if you will, after World War II, and the whole idea was, you know, we needed parking space for all these new cars we were driving, but also the whole idea of architecture and what buildings should look like changed dramatically as well.
It was not until about 1961 that they actually took all the tree plots and widened the street. I remember being in total shock. They took a vote of all the property owners, and they all wanted the lights. And the city wanted Kirkwood to be the great white way to the university. Before that time, you could drive a car, you could go all the way to the Union Building. And I think not too long after they did all that widening, they put up a sign saying, no end. You could walk, but you couldn't drive.
Today, Kirkwood terminates in the iconic Sample Gates, built in 1987 to welcome pedestrians browsing Kirkwood's many shops and restaurants to the campus of Indiana University. But although Kirkwood has changed dramatically, it's still home to many famous local buildings.
The Avon Lee was there. I think for a while it was a grocery store in the front, and then it was a bakery in the back. The Costas brothers had the book nook that was where the Gables is now, and that's where Hoagie Carmichael wrote The Stardust. We've heard the stories where he was knocking on the door after they had closed up, and he said, "You've got to let me in, I've got a tune in my mind." So then they let him in, and he composed it on their piano there.
Kirkwood is also home to Nick's English Hut, one of the oldest bars in Bloomington, and a favorite spot for locals, returning alumni, and visitors.
I was in Nick's last week and just remembering, it's been there all along. It's changed a little bit. The food has become fancier, and it's expanded upstairs now. So it's really maintained its the same kind of character.
Everybody's got to eat. That's one thing. I'll always have a job. Nick's will always be there as long as we keep it up. We happen to be an English hut that was started by a Greek immigrant. Yeah, you've got Korean restaurants here, Chinese, Japanese, great sushi in this town.
The restaurants, of course, were always fun. You got to know your wait personnel and really wanted to have that person look after you when you went back.
The one restaurant that my wife and I thoroughly enjoyed was Ladyman's. Sometimes the tables would hold 6 or 8. And you'd sit down and pretty soon someone would join you. You didn't know who they were. So it was like old home week. These people, that's how Ladyman's was operated. A lot of times you went in and you were alone and you sat and met people.
Ladyman's, I do remember eating there and thinking that it tasted like not home cooking. Everybody raved about this place tastes just like home. Well, no, Mom and Grandma did a really good job.
In 2001, Kirkwood underwent a major renovation as the city commenced the Big Dig to replace the more than 100-year-old storm sewer system. As a result, Kirkwood became even more commercial.
One of the challenges for city and county governments since that time has been to go back and rebuild the infrastructure of the community. You don't think a lot about storm sewers as being very important, and yet they're the things that keep us dry.
Basically, they just took up the whole street all the way up to the doorstep. They took out everything, and it was something that was necessary for the betterment of Bloomington. That's one thing we're very fortunate here in Bloomington to have, is the restoration of streets like Kirkwood.
Kirkwood certainly has become a commercial street, and it's lined with stores, and I think they made that decision a long time ago that it wasn't going to be residential. Of course, there are some apartments left on the upper floors of some of those buildings.
It's in some kind of cycle. I don't know if I'll live to see the end of that cycle, but it's a cycle. Things are always changing in there. And that's the Kirkwood I remember from a long time ago.
By the early 1960s, as Bloomington grew and some businesses and residents began to relocate to newly developed areas, the downtown was at a crossroads. Would it fall into decay, as was happening in so many Midwestern small-town city centers? Or would Bloomington find a way to keep its downtown relevant and vital in an era of rapid change?
When you looked at it, the downtown was either dead or dying. Other stores that were beginning to empty along the north side, the Wicks, Pennies had moved out, the dime stores were in trouble. The medical community had moved out, the attorneys were beginning to move out of downtown. The hardware stores were even beginning to suffer.
Downtown Bloomington needed help, and a handful of community leaders stepped up, providing ideas and funds to renovate the downtown, starting with the Graham Plaza Hotel.
79, I think February, that we did the first tour of the Graham Hotel. And when we were looking at it, it had been abandoned for 7 years, and thinking that, you know, here's the symbol of that decay that was occurring in downtown. And we thought originally that we would do it and restore it and then probably sell it and then use the money and go do another building. People didn't really realize what we were doing, and Sarkis Tarzan called me and he said, "Steve, I understand what you boys," referring to Bill Cook and I, "are trying to do." We had vision for what we were doing and understood it, but immediately stepped up. And you know, I never forget that story, because that one thing might have been the key driver in what the success of downtown has been. When we were doing the Graham, we were trying to demonstrate to people, because there was sort of an approach that had taken place around the country. A lot of urban renewal was, let's take everything down and rebuild, and then what happened, there wasn't economics to drive the rebuilding, and so they had all this vacant space. And you can think of hundreds of cities around the Midwest. So we were trying to demonstrate that adaptive reuse was an economical way to approach it, but also maintain the historic look. But it's also a modern office building with all the modern conveniences.
The south side of the downtown square also received a major facelift in the form of the Fountain Square project. Once again, community leaders stepped in to revitalize the area while maintaining its historic character.
One of the groups that stayed with the downtown that sort of kept it together were the banks. Fountain Federal had purchased that whole side of the square, and there was a lot of debate about whether they wanted to tear it down and build a new building there, or whether that be restored. Actually, that part of the square at that point in time was probably the strongest in terms of retail. When you got into it and when you looked at it, it looked like it was fairly substantial. As a matter of fact, it was just leaning against each other. So there were several stores that had to relocate, but for us to actually do the restoration.
Local churches also played a role in keeping downtown Bloomington vibrant and healthy.
There were 4 main downtown churches always, and it was the Presbyterian Church, the First Christian Church, the Episcopalian Church, and the First Methodist Church. And they are still there. Now, each of those churches had the opportunity to move out to the suburbs. But I think those 4 churches determined that they needed to be downtown because we had a mission downtown. And that mission now has grown into our mission to help the homeless.
Meanwhile, as the city rallied to save the downtown, Bloomington was expanding as developers began to colonize open farmland to the north, south, and east. Before long, new commercial enterprises began to spring up, including Eastland Plaza, College Mall, and other businesses. From the 1960s through the early 80s, numerous subdivisions were developed as well.
My memory of it starting to transition was when the Catholic Church was located at the corner of 3rd and Dunn. There was a decision to move them to their current location, and that was quite a discussion because where they moved to was way out in the country, 3rd and High. That was the Rogers Farm property. I think they had cattle back then.
Well, you got to remember that there was nothing east of Jordan, and there was nothing north of the railroad, 10th Street. All those houses were built in the 50s. You had Hoosier Acres, and you had Ralph Deckard with his farm on the other side. You had Ralph Rogers. That whole east side of Bloomington was all Hereford cattle.
Several decades ago, one of Bloomington's most important industries was the railroad. originally known as the New Albany and Salem Railroad, and later as the Chicago, Indianapolis, and Louisville Railroad. In 1965, it became the Monon Railroad. At one time, the Monon was the largest double-track railroad in the country.
I think that folks today either tend to forget or don't know how important the railroad was to this community at one time. There was a time 100 years ago when the Monon Railroad was the largest employer in Bloomington, Indiana. So in that respect, the Monon was successful. And I think those things are important to remember.
Back in the 1800s, the industries of Bloomington wouldn't have been possible without a railroad. The predecessor of the Monon Railroad originally started in 1847. Railroad came north from Salem to Orleans to Bedford to Bloomington. First passenger train didn't come into Monroe County, oddly enough, until 1854.
And there's an old saying that if you want to find the true measure of a man, you turn him loose in a strange town and watch the first place he heads for. Well, the first place I headed for was the Monon Roundhouse because I wanted to work on the railroad. In the summer of 1960, the Monon hired me, and I spent almost 40 years with them. I ran both passenger and freight, but you had to get qualified on freight before they would let you qualify on passenger. I ran freight out of Bloomington both ways to Louisville and to Lafayette. And of course, running a passenger train was easier than running a freight train because you had a lot less train to worry about.
The railroad played a key role in the city's economic growth. Trains supplied the city with lumber, coal, and other vital supplies, and helped deliver slabs of limestone from Bloomington's many quarries to the mills. Perhaps most importantly, the railroad was a major employer.
From the very beginning, when the railroad came to town, Bloomington was a divisional headquarters. One time I've heard reports that there were 2,000 people working in McDowell Yards. We had control here of everything south to the Ohio River. The four legs of the railroad crossed at Monon, Indiana. One leg went north to Michigan City, another went northwest to Chicago, a leg dropped southeast to Indianapolis, and then the long leg came all the way down through Lafayette to Bloomington and all the way to Louisville, Kentucky.
I have some early timetables that show 12 or 14 trains a day through Bloomington. In my lifetime with the Monon, there were just one northbound and one southbound train each day.
Railroads were started and stopped all the time and went broke and bought one another like automobile companies and airlines do today. The Monon came to an actual end around 1971, 1972. It was purchased by the L&N, or Louisville and Nashville Railroad. Then, as the L&N was absorbed into the seaboard, and Baltimore and Ohio and several other large railroads became CSX Transportation.
Despite the railroad's value as an economic driver, it was not universally praised. The fact that the railroad tracks cut through the center of Bloomington caused frequent traffic delays and safety concerns. It was a source of agitation for some locals.
The city of Bloomington basically looked at the railroad as being a bit of a nuisance because it did in fact split the town in half.
There were quite a few trains, and frequently there were trains which blocked the route between the people on the east side and Bloomington Hospital, and that became a real hazard. And so that underpass was a major event to make it possible always to get to the other side of downtown to get to the hospital.
In the early 1940s, Bloomington began to develop its manufacturing with RCA and later Sarkis-Tarzian, a plan that paid dividends a few decades later as other major businesses, including Westinghouse, General Electric, and Otis Elevator, settled in Bloomington. But by far, the most important and influential Bloomington-based plant was RCA. At its peak, RCA employed nearly 10,000 workers and put Bloomington on the map as the color television capital of the world.
First set foot in Bloomington in 1964. At the time I was fresh out of trade school, looking for a career, a job of anything. There were some hard times then, jobs weren't too plentiful. I figured it would be a temporary job till something else came along. As it was, there was enough growth and opportunity within RCA that I stayed there for 36 years.
I hired in at RCA August 2nd of '66, right out of high school. When I hired in for $1.57.50 an hour. I agreed to work for that. I worked up against a brick wall, and there was no air conditioning at the time in Plant 1.
My history at RCA really starts back in the mid-1960s, and I progressed from being a material planner into some manufacturing supervision, and then finally my last 3 years at the plant, I was the plant manager.
I had insurance there, I had benefits, and they were always good to me. After I was married and had children, if you needed to be off because a child was sick, there wasn't a problem.
Great amount of the lines were automated, even in the middle to later 60s. And on lines like that, the speed of the performance, if you will, was controlled by the speed of the line. The supervising was done, as Charlotte says, by a lot of interaction with the employees, talking to them, finding out their needs, taking care of those when you could.
An average day, when I was in test, I just got in to make sure that all my stuff was where I needed it. When the line started, you had so many seconds to do a job. The last job I had 13 seconds to do what I did. The line was here, and behind here was all mirrors, and you could see the back of the set, and you adjusted in front, and then you looked at that and adjusted the focus. They gave top value stamps if you didn't make rejects. Well, when you tell ladies they could have top value stamps back then, I bought all my kids Christmas with top value stamps one year.
I believe that the achievements we made were all because of the dedication that the employees had to doing their job well. We were the only company that had the capability to build color TVs. And we built color TVs on the assembly line for Zenith, Magnavox, Motorola, to actually build the color TV market. And when that TV set went to someone's home, it worked, and they were proud to have it, and we were proud to have built it.
That slipped a little as it went from GE to Thomson's in the last few years. I think it wasn't quite as strong as it had been because they were taking the jobs out, and I think some people were hurt and angry over it. Well, when we heard the rumors that the plant was going to close, for some people it was anger right away. The thing that hurt us was NAFTA. You can't blame the companies necessarily. You have to look to the government. They did the thing where they could take things out of the country. When the government agreed to that, it was the downfall of a lot of plants and companies in this country.
Our company couldn't get all out of the U.S. and into Mexico soon enough. Mexico didn't have the quality work ethic that we had in the U.S., and they couldn't do the job suitably, and market share for RCA product was falling. Unfortunately, the very super good name of RCA has darn near been ruined by this move to cheap labor, and with that we've had cheap quality and cheap results.
As it went down to GE and then to Thomson's, it changed a lot. And when I left there, I worked right up till the last day. As I came out of the plant, I stopped and turned around and looked back at Plant 2, and I did cry because that was a part of your life that was gone.
And I'm proud to say that when I retired in 1990, we were still considered the color television capital of the world. We were still leaders in the market. We were producing 15,000 color television sets a day. We had the best outgoing quality as measured by the government agencies. and we were respected by all other television manufacturers.
Alongside industry, any town that hopes to thrive and grow needs a robust and adaptable healthcare system. In the early years of the 20th century, Bloomington civic leaders got the ball rolling, although the development of the city's hospital did not always go smoothly.
The hospital idea started with the local council of women when a young man had been severely injured on the railroad, and the next day the local council was meeting and said, we need a hospital, and so they went back to looking on the west side and the Hopewell Farm and got it underway in 1905. They could handle 7 to 8 patients. The surgery was on the second floor, so patients had to be carried up the stairs. The 1918 building was constructed. As people came home from war, the pressure, I think, was on from GIs at the time. The same thing took place in World War II. We're demanding of better health care. When I came to Bloomington in 1966, that building was still in existence.
I remember being in that hospital in 1967. I remember metal frame military type cots. There wasn't much difference between the 1930s and the 1960s as far as technology. I remember the colors were a surplus army green. Seemed like in the mid-60s everything was painted that color green, every institution, and thinking it wasn't that nice of a place to be.
The Bloomington Hospital had remained a rather small institution. Its management was against the needed expansion, and so a strong movement grew in Bloomington to actually have a second hospital using federal funds. It was on the verge of really splitting the efforts for health care here in Bloomington.
The period in the late 50s and early 60s when there was great dissension in this town between continuing with the present structure and the present administration, advocating a new hospital to be built on separate ground. The structure that was built starting in the early 60s and ended with completion and dedication in 1965 is what I viewed when I first came to Bloomington. The main thing I coped with was the inadequacy of this money being paid for hospital workers. There was a strike on at the time in New York City, and the minimum wage did not apply to hospital workers, and people were making 95 cents an hour. We were taking the bottom of the barrel of the labor market at the time. Those and equipment changes were immense. It was just a breaking out of the whole medical care program, and doctors were in short supply. We kept almost in continual state of construction at the hospital. We added 80 beds in a period of a few years. We went suddenly from about 150 beds up to 240 beds, almost overnight. Now I think we're at the level of over 300 physicians now, and I remember when we had 50 or so, and I remember when the first neurosurgery was done, the first heart bypass was done in Bloomington, and we took on all the hard, tough stuff. And I remember getting a letter to the editor, why do we allow people from other counties to come in since we in Bloomington built that hospital? And the answer is we would not have the specialist in Bloomington if we did not have 50% of our patient load coming from outside Monroe County.
Education is another pillar supporting any community. As Bloomington schools developed from one-room schoolhouses to rural schools, and later to neighborhood institutions, the mission remained the same: to educate Bloomington's youngsters and prepare them to become engaged, contributing citizens.
The elementary school kind of connects you to the rest of the world. And of course, the education you get is very important. The expectations that are made on you by your parents, as well as society, help form who you're going to become.
I remember the teachers as being very dedicated, and most of the kids liked being there, I think. It was a fun time.
I went to Harrodsburg Grade School in the 50s and the early 60s, which was 8 grades in 4 classrooms. We were looked down on by the kids of Smithville who actually had a classroom for each grade. That seems like such a major thing. But we were able to look down on the kids from Chapel Hill who had 6 grades in one room.
I went to Elm Heights School. Elm Heights was fairly new, and it had a lawn in the front. You didn't put one step on that grass. One time I came out and my mother had come to pick me up, and so I very mistakenly ran across the grass to get to the car. And before I got in the car, Clark Adkins was right there with his hand on my shoulder, says, "Come on, come with me." And we went back and I got a good scolding. And believe me, I never stepped on that grass again. And I'm very conscious of stepping on anybody's grass.
I went to McCullough School. Their principal only taught one class, and that was English. And I totally remember him teaching our English class, and everyone in that class knew every part of speech. In high school and in college, we were, it was fine. We could get along fine, and everybody else was struggling with verbs and adverbs and all that stuff.
McCullough School. I started there in the 1st grade, and from the 1st grade on, I walked to school. Seldom did parents drive their kids to school because we were all one-car families back in those days. It was a nice walk.
The town was so different back then. That the community we lived in, of course, is gone now where the hospital is, but the area was teeming with kids. Almost everybody walked to school. A lot of the kids lived over on House Streets and Maple Streets, and that park that's across from Crossman Hospital, still there. It's virtually unchanged.
As it is for many students, the transition from small elementary classrooms to the bustling halls of high school was an exciting challenge for Bloomington students.
Well, I remember my high school days and the camaraderie I had with so many new friends.
I had such a good time, and I was in plays, and I remember having a radio studio in high school. It was a little scary at first because coming in from a grade school, you were in junior high and then high school, but you got into it pretty quickly, and I found it really, really a lot of fun.
The idea of actually changing classrooms and moving around Bloomington High School, 1,500 students, overwhelmed. I think probably a lot of emotional agitation going from this little community where everybody knew who you were to Bloomington where you could hide. Not just could hide, but you could get lost. My assumption is that that happened in larger numbers than we want to think about.
Classes were small. We had the best of equipment to work with. When I left there, I was prepared to do anything, go any place and do anything. It was the best years of my life.
In the mid-1960s, Bloomington's small neighborhood and rural schools were consolidated to form 2 school districts: Monroe County Consolidated School Corporation and Richland Bean Blossom School Corporation. Not all locals were supportive. Not all parents were supportive.
The township trustee ran the school system in Clear Creek Township all across the state, and so consolidation was actually a much closer issue to us kids. In hindsight now, looking back, we knew about consolidation. Our parents were convinced that it was some type of strange power grab by the liberals in Bloomington who were going to force us to get an education that we didn't need. Everybody was perfectly happy with those township schools.
In 1963, there was not a consolidation yet. And I happened to be attending the meeting at Binford, and the place was packed. And the person who probably swayed the crowd the most was Sarkis-Tarzian. And Sarkis-Tarzian said at that meeting that we should not have a singular school system for Monroe County. We needed at least two. And his argument prevailed, and because of that, we got the Monroe County school system, and we also got the Richland Bean Blossom system. So those were the two systems created. And before that, you know, they were little units out there with just too many units singularly out there. We even had some elementary schools that went to 6th grade, and that was the end of it. Reorganization had to take place.
The consolidation actually came during my tenure in the state legislature, really. The city school system that I recall, of course, was Fairview and Hunter and Elm Heights and McCalla. There was only the one high school and junior high school until the late 30s when the university school was built. Originally, the lines of attendance to the university school took in most of the faculty housing and professional people, the southeast part of town and the east part of town, and Bloomington High, more the working neighborhoods, and which wasn't a healthy situation. They took pains to draw lines that gave a better mix of the well-to-do and the poorer people in both Bloomington South and the rebuilt Bloomington High School North, and in the location of the separate buildings for junior high schools.
I don't know whether that consolidation resistance was really because our parents thought we were going to get indoctrinated in city ways, or if it was because those people that knew they were going to lose their jobs organized politically. But consolidation was put off. Well, finally it was the last vote on it, and that resulted in the 72 consolidation. That it was, if you do not do this, the state's going to come and do it. But my family was very reluctant to get on that bandwagon.
The effects of the consolidation had made the schools more unified, but they were still very spread out, and that makes it different than today.
After it was all said and done, things settled down and everybody seemed to be happy with it.
During World War II, cities and towns across the United States pitched in to aid the war effort. Bloomington was no exception. Locals thrilled to the sight of enlisted men and women arriving by train and marching up Kirkwood to campus barracks at 10th and Woodlawn. Indiana University housed and trained the enlistees for typing, shorthand, and other non-combat clerical duties.
I was approximately 7 years old, 8 years old at the time. I remember watching the waves march, and they would march, believe it or not, on 10th Street, and then turn and go on Walnut Grove or Woodlawn for their daily marches.
The Navy training program here at IU was not large and very specialized. It trained actually both men, who were called yeomen, and the waves to take positions in offices as the clerks of the units, record keeping. It was highly specialized in that respect and lasted 2 or 3 years during the war.
We saw a lot of people in uniform and service people. They came to Bloomington when they got a weekend pass.
After the war, the GI Bill enabled many veterans to attend college. Suddenly inundated with waves of former soldiers and their families, Indiana University was forced to improvise to provide housing for the new enrollees.
I remember the trailer park. It was called Woodlawn Courts at that particular time. It was really a sight to see. I don't know how many people lived there. They had the trailers, and then they had community restroom facilities complete with showers.
Much to my surprise, we moved into a trailer. Most of what you needed for your personal use was outside. So, you know, making those trips in the middle of the night was not exactly what I had bargained for.
But I told her, if you marry me, I will take you somewhere.
And literally he did, yes.
And I brung her to Bloomington.
I can describe Hoosier Courts for you. It's typical Army barracks. We were upstairs on the outside, which was apartment 8. And you walked into one large room with a space heater on one end, window at the other, and that was your living room, dining room area, a little tiny kitchen.
I remember the floors being these big waves, you know, all warped and everything. They probably were warped, but not like that.
In the brochure that we got for Hoosier Courts, it said it had an ice box. And well, after the second time we forgot to empty the pan, flooded our neighbor downstairs, we wrote to my mother and dad, said, please send us the refrigerator.
It was pretty rustic living, but we were here just a couple of summers, so it was just like camping out.
There was no bedroom, dining room, or kitchen. There was one room. I remember, though, spending a lot of time really with the ladies in the trailer court. We got to know each other. We'd wash the clothes and had to hang them on the clothesline. I mean, it was really primitive pioneer life in Indiana, I guess you'll call it.
We did the same thing that everybody else in the trailer court did. We started to get together to plan meals that everybody could participate in it. And it was the greatest thing since bubblegum. And I enjoyed it immensely because I was getting 3 squares and I had the trailer court to lie down in at night. Couldn't have been any better.
As in the rest of the country, the post-war era saw a blossoming of youth culture in Bloomington. In the 1950s, long before cable TV and the internet had kids glued to their screens, Bloomington youth threw sock hops, danced to a new kind of music called rock and roll, and cruised the town in what are now considered Detroit's classic cars.
You know, I can remember when people drove their cars downtown and sat on the square, different places, just to watch the people go by. That's something.
We didn't do so much cruising back in those days. We boys would gather downtown at a place called the Rail. It was at the corner of Walnut and Kirkwood. And we would sit there on the rail, and then the girls would all drive by and looking for cat calls. I don't know what they were looking for, but they wanted our attention. I remember that.
Back in the day, that South Side Big Boy and then the 11th Street Big Boy / A&W became the Loop. And you would drive continually from one to the other, and you would see your friends, and then you would pull over in the parking lot until Officer Charlie Brown would come to the MP parking lot and chase you out of there.
What we did is we went to the drive-in and we'd sit there and loaf a while and you know, talk to the girls as car hops, and then we'd go up to the other one. And like I said, punt many miles between the 2 drive-ins on Saturday night. That was your day away from school, and Saturday night was a big night, and you could stay up late that night.
Just basically a thing to see and be seen at the time. You just were traveling. Gas was cheap.
I don't remember anything less than about 25 cents a gallon.
Farm gas, you got 9 cents off that, so it was 16 cents.
Back then when they had gas wars on independent-owned places, I've seen gas go down to like $0.10 a gallon for a short time.
The normal price for a marathon, I think at that time, was 25 cents, around in the mid-50s.
I can remember in the low 20s, and then they would give you dishes and stuff.
Cars have remained an important memory for many. Do you remember your first car?
My first car was a 1955 Ford Fairlane.
My first car was a 49 Chevrolet 6-cylinder.
And I had a 65 Ford Fairlane, 2E9s all built up, and it was pretty quick for what it was.
I was driving a 4-cylinder Henry J. Some of the guys thought that was funny because if he didn't have a Chevy, Ford, or Plymouth. And I'll tell you a little story about that. This guy in this 48 Plymouth coupe was pulled right up bumper to bumper with my Henry J. And he thought he was going to push me backwards. and I just put it in low gear. And what he didn't know is I had a Jeep truck clutch in my Henry J, and I ended up pushing him backwards, and he says, "Whoa, whoa, don't do that anymore, my clutch is slipping."
Was this cruising and driving cars just for the guys? And how long did these friendships with the passengers last?
Well, in the 70s, I was among the girls that would be out cruising, although I was driving a 1970 Ford Impala. Could you get a prettier girl, someone from a nicer girl, a more popular girl if you had a better car? How'd you do with the Henry J?
I did fine.
You did fine?
Yeah, I married the girl that rode with me.
I married the girl
that got in your car?
Got in the car.
As Bloomington developed and people had more time for leisure activities, the city invested in parks and recreation facilities. The Lower Cascades Park was Bloomington's first. A 26-acre parcel of land purchased in 1920 for $6,800 and dedicated in 1924.
Parks programming over the decades to the current century has been pretty complex and frequent. There was a lot of land acquisition to begin to create the system that we have today, and then regularly in every decade after that, that occurred. There were many parcels of property, Bryan Park, Miller Showers Park, Cascades Park. Several of the parcels I mentioned were purchased for $1 with arrangements from donors or families that were just interested in preserving some green space for the future generations.
The 1927 Hill, Waldron, and Buskirk Park was known as the 3rd Street Park, complete with pool and bandshell for summer concerts.
I remember going swimming there a lot, and the park itself had a bandstand, and I remember them having concerts down there in the summer.
I was a lifeguard for 2 years, only I was just an assistant because I was too young, too small. But when the World War II started, the shortage of males to do lifeguard work was quite critical. It was something else to clean that pool. Every 2 weeks that pool was so dirty you couldn't believe it, and how hard it was to get the scum off of the walls of the pool, particularly in the deep areas.
Pool maintenance today is not a whole lot different than it was in the early days, but the sand-based components of the era that Frank mentioned were common until through the 70s and even in the 80s. Bryan Park Pool was built in 1959. By 1967, Mills Pool, as we know it today, was constructed, and that made the 3rd Street Park Pool kind of no longer necessary.
The limestone bandshell at the 3rd Street Park was demolished, and the remnants were pushed into the deep end of the pool and covered with soil.
Parks assets over the years have accumulated to, I think, a fairly significant amount for a community our size. We have about 2,300 acres of property in total. About half that's at Griffey Lake. We have 40 park sites. Our annual budget's in the neighborhood of $9 million. We have approximately 54 full-time staff, and we think the assets total somewhere between $50 and $60 million, land and other assets related to the parks, the playgrounds, the benches, the shelters, and equipment associated with that.
One of the more recent parks and recs developments in Bloomington is the Bee Line Trail. But this now widely treasured asset was not uniformly supported at the outset.
Trail development in Bloomington is an interesting story. The challenge to get people to accept trail building and the trail culture in our community.
As a development lawyer, I've opposed quite a bit of it, but most of the time we had to surrender if we wanted to get what we wanted.
Personally, I think it's a good idea because it keeps the memory of the railroad alive. And of course, we're both active in the Monon Historical Society, and trying to keep the memory of the Monon Railroad alive is one of the things we concentrate on. So I think the Bee Line Trail is a good thing.
When the railroad went away and the purpose was to rerun it back to rails and trails, from the standpoint of it creates a useful corridor. And I understand that Bloomington may be considering making McDowell Yard into a park.
The decision to make the old railroad, once it was abandoned, into the Bee Line Trail is just incredible. It's just a wonderful addition to the downtown. Yeah. And I'm amazed at the people I see, even this winter, out on a regular basis, walking or bicycling on the trail.
Yeah, that really is a major addition. And not only is it a positive addition, but it eliminated an eyesore.
I'm not nearly as excited about the Beeline Trail as a lot of people are. I have yet to see the economic impact that it has had on the community that it was sold as an economic impact. So far, I haven't seen it. It is great because there are a lot of people today, the younger people, that like to walk and ride bikes from one destination to another.
Most of the land that we now have trails on that started our trail system was outside the jurisdiction of the city. And that project generated a lot of controversy in the 80s. By '96, we did a community-wide citizen attitude and interest survey. The most common response was build trails, and walking and biking for pleasure are the #1 recreation activity. I would have never guessed that had that survey not said it. And it didn't say it by a small margin, it said it by a large margin. And for historians, most people know that industry was centered in downtown Bloomington. The Showers Brothers Furniture Factory, some of the other industrial plants were located downtown. The Herald Times got its paper delivered, and Black Lumber had a spur that went over to them. And gradually, as those industries moved from the core of the downtown, the railroad line there made no sense anymore. So 2006 and 7 were the years we did a master plan for the entire trail, and then the funding to build the trail, the remnants from the purchase. We built the trail and opened the first leg in 2008. We see this trail as really an economic driver and redevelopment occurring up and down the entire 3.1-mile corridor. I think the biggest opportunity we have is going to be the development of the Switchyard Park. As Bloomington grows and develops and extends itself outward, that's a natural place to go. So having 57 acres in a relatively centralized part of town to do something with, that's a rare opportunity. We've got a master plan. It's a big project. It's got some consensus things that people would like to see, some green space with a stage, an amphitheater that would accommodate maybe 10,000 people. So if you can imagine today's community events like Taste of Bloomington and Lotus, and who knows what will be here 50 years from now. I suspect Bryan Park was viewed as in the 50s for residents of our community at the time. It was on the periphery of town, not in the downtown area, but eventually the community grew around that. But I think that park has a tremendous opportunity to influence the entire corridor, South Walnut, South Rogers, for the future of our community.
Together, Bloomington's history of development in business, healthcare, education, and recreation, and the university has added up to what many recognize as an unusually high quality of life.
The quality of life is, I think, one of the important things here in Bloomington and why people would want to live here. Southern Indiana offers so much, and Bloomington offers so much in addition, that you've got the best combination. And then you add Big Ten sports, and what the music school provides, and on and on. The quality of life here is excellent.
Bloomington's still the greatest place in the world to live. I just love Bloomington.
Well, I saw Bloomington grow rapidly. It was one of the things that made recruiting physicians relatively easy.
I think the most miraculous change downtown still going on is the apartment buildings that have just shot up in downtown Bloomington.
We're becoming increasingly a retirement community. Among other things, it's one of our economic development assets.
The diversity that it is here with opportunities to learn and to experience it's hard to find that anyplace else.
Sometimes they've been to school here and they get a taste of Bloomington and they want to come back when they retire.
I enjoyed the small hometown feel of Bloomington. I realize that we're growing and we're losing some of that, I think.
You say Bloomington has changed quite a bit, but then again, it really hasn't. I think you still have that feeling of youth in Bloomington. The vibrancy in the blood of Bloomington will always remain fresh and flow like that because everybody's young here, or at least you always have that younger feeling. If you move away somewhere else, it seems you kind of age a little bit.
And we want to learn from our history, and we certainly don't want to forget our history.
For a DVD or Blu-ray disc of this program or other WTIU produced programs, go online at www.shopwtiu.org.